We're going to look at Philippians chapter 1, verses 27 through 30. These relate directly to what we read in 1 Peter 5 about your adversary, the devil, goes about as a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. I'm just going to read these and we'll discuss them as we go along. He says, only let your conduct be worthy of the gospel of Christ. And that just means the living according. So the gospel defines my life, how I conduct myself. When I believe the gospel, I act accordingly. One of the things that the gospel does is declare your righteousness. It declares my righteousness, my holiness. I am holy, blameless, and above reproach. So I want my conduct, how I live, to be representative and shaped by what the gospel declares. It's really important. So let your conduct be worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come and see you or I am absent, I may hear of your affairs, that you stand fast in one spirit with one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel. So Paul's writing this and he says, I want to hear good things, good report. And this, he says, this one mind, this one spirit in the faith of the gospel. The faith has so much to do with my trusting, my believing, hanging on to what's true no matter what, and living according to it. The faith is a perspective. It's a way of seeing. Yes, there is faith believing for miracles, healing, deliverance, all sorts of things, but there is the faith that he speaks of. And in Philippians, he talks about us having the same mind, the same way of thinking that Christ did. And that's in chapter 2. There's a whole lot in Philippians. But so when he says this, I want to hear of your conduct, that it's worthy, that it matches the gospel, that you are standing in one faith, one spirit, and according to, and in the faith of the gospel, according to, in alliance with what the gospel declares. And then he goes on. We get to verse 28. And not in any way terrified by your adversaries. So your adversary, the devil, he walks around like a roaring lion. He wants to frighten me. He wants to scare me. But I'm being told here that when I stand in the faith of the gospel and walk according to what the gospel declares, that I have no reason to be afraid, terrified of any adversary, anything that comes against it, because the truth is the truth, regardless of what's going on, regardless of circumstances, regardless of how I feel. So there is no reason to be terrified, scared, and moved by adversarial anything against. Adversary means to come against. So we have the adversary, the devil. We have all things that come against what the gospel declares, whether that's me feeling guilty, ashamed, condemned, whether it's accusations. Remember, when I'm holy, blameless, and above reproach means that there's not accusations that can stick against me. So he says, not in any way terrified by your adversaries. This is a result of truly believing the gospel, being connected with God, his heart, his will, and knowing that we read in Colossians 1. And he says, when I live this way, it is to them, the adversaries, a proof of perdition. They're like, you're messed up, you're crazy. But to you, it's of your salvation, your deliverance. You are no longer stuck in believing the lies, the things that come in opposition to what God has declared. Because you say, I'm going to believe, you make that conscious choice to believe God no matter what. And for those on the opposite side, it says, that's crazy. To you, it says, I've gotten a glimpse. My eye is single and my body is filled with light. So it is proof to you of salvation, and that from God. It's what he declared, it's what he has done. For to you it has been granted on behalf of Christ, not only to believe in him, but also to suffer for his sake. So how hard it is and what's going on doesn't determine whether I am terrified by my adversaries. When I am fixed and set upon the word, the truth, the gospel, I am not moved, and yet I am unmoved. To finish this up, having the same conflict which you saw in me and now here is in me. And Paul says you can walk and live like me. There is an aspect of the gospel which empowers us to not be afraid, to not live with anxiety, to be victorious and to walk in that. And on Wednesday, we're going to look at a verse where God declares beforehand our triumph, our victory.